Mhm.
Oh, we're going live,
Okay.
and we are live.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my stream. My name is Jules. As always, when you join me here on my channel, you are my treasures. Welcome to what I like to call Area 5T1, where we do talk the five T's. We talk about transition, triathlon trends, uh, teaching, and trucks. Now, when we talk about teaching, there are three topics we talk about. I will do some of my recipes from time to time. So we talk about treats. We talk about, I talk about teaching about the basics of the Mormon church and my deconstruction from it. And I talk about preparedness. So today, I got a little special episode lined up for everybody. I have my friend Exmo Joe here. Exmo Joe is also a um, former Mormon. Myself, I have deconstructed and left the church, and have actually joined up with Joe's organization here called the Church of Korhor, which is a godless church. In other words, we don't believe in any deity or God. We, just what we decide to talk about. Also, one of our biggest initiatives here is to help out the homeless and get warm. Yes, everyone, please do hit a like, subscribe, comment down below. Um, so, uh, like I said, we're in a mission to blanket the homeless. Joe has a program where we're going to be getting blankets and go out and hand them out to homeless people. And one of his major initiatives is in Utah to buy church buildings for cold days, even hot days during the summer, and make sure people are in temperatures that can be tolerated. In Utah, sometimes it gets to 18 degrees, where people's blood can literally start freezing, and therefore, we can, people can freeze to death. So they usually call code what they call a code blue, and people can go to warming centers, usually sponsored by other churches, not the major church in Utah, which is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that has a total combined assets of $300 billion. And they, don't really follow, do these warming centers. So today we're going to talk with Exmo Joe and look at his initiatives and see what else we can go on in the conversation here and move forward. So I do want Joe to talk a little bit about his organization and what we're going to do.
I love that. Thank you very much, Jules. And listen,
No
I'm very
problem.
happy to say that you are the first convert that I have converted to Korohorism. And I've been very proud of you and seeing the progress of your channel. I feel like we met by just pure happenstance. I mean, I just happened to be on
Yeah.
YouTube, saw that you were live, and I'm like, oh, this trans woman is talking about deconstructing Mormonism. I sat and listened for about 2 minutes before I'm like, oh yeah, I'm subbing to this channel. This is definitely my content. So I'm very grateful to be here. Uh, sure, I'd be happy to tell you a little bit about the organization, answer questions. Hopefully, if there are comments on there, I'm only seeing comments from Hellfire Agency right now, but so you'll just let me know
Okay.
if there's anything. But so the Church of Korihor, it was founded last month, now that we are officially in January, but it's been kind of a passion of mine for a couple of decades. People say that we atheists have a new religion, which is surprising to us because we sure as hell aren't getting the tax breaks from it. We're not getting any of the spiritual community that we used to get, many of us, when we were in uh, when we were in church. those of us who were Mormons. Now, there's also a lot of ex Christians, other kinds of Christians, ex Catholics, ex Jehovah's Witnesses, etc., who are definitely interested in the Church of Korihor. But since I'm in Utah and I already have an existing community in ex Mormonism, we're that's mainly where we're finding a lot of our people are coming from. But the idea about the creed of the Church of Korihor is we transform painful lives into lives worth living. By the light of reason, we are all Korihor, which is a bit of a long creed. We may shorten it. Beautiful thing about a church that doesn't have any religion, that doesn't have any revelations or canon so far, is that we can change things on a dime. You need to be able to turn on a dime in this group. But the thing is that, when it comes to religions, as far as I have ever known, religions are always religions are supposed to be spiritual communities of people who share similar values, and among atheism, you just can't say that that's true. Atheism has no values, really. It has the only thing about atheism that is worthy of calling it atheism is that we don't believe that there's a God. And so then it's like, there's no really, when people say that's no value at all, when God believers say that's no value at all, I agree. That's no value at all. And so I said, well, if atheists have religion, then we'd have to be defining a certain group of atheists as having certain common values. So as like I always say, atheism has no values, but atheists do. And not all of us share the same values. There are a lot of transphobic atheists. There are a lot of homophobic atheists. And I tell you this right now, if I had a community, a spiritual community where I get to pick who's in the pews with me, those atheists are out. And also there are a lot of anti-feminists, even atheists that I really admire in many ways, like Christopher Hitchens, were very anti-feminist. And I can't condone that as a value. So I say, well, I love me some Hitch, but he's out. He wouldn't be a part of my spiritual community. We wouldn't need that toxicity. So I said, well, okay, so there is something to say about, you can take a group of people who identify as none, right? So there's your agnostics, your atheists, your apatheists, even people who recognize as dudists or Jedaists and so forth, people who have no passion about one way or another, about God. There's all of these groups. All together, we are the largest religious affiliation in the country, possibly in the world, and especially since the big 2020, right? And we all remember what happened with 2020, and then so now we have this community where, frankly, if you take even a small sliver of the nuns, quote unquote nuns, and say these people all have the same values, we're all going to connect to these values, it still makes up a significant number of people. And so I'm looking to fill these pews with people who believe in the 12 values of Korohorism, such as they are. They recently changed. Like I say recently, I mean, like as of like yesterday, I changed one of them. But we're nailing it down.
Someone's asking me if I lost my voice because I'm not talking. No, I didn't, Danny. I'm just letting my friend Joe go on with this talk.
We're stealing her voice.
Okay, go
on. We're taking her voice for Korohorism. So yeah. So the organization goes like, it's basically like this. We have a creed. We have 12 values. I'd be happy to go over those if people are interested in them. We are constructing a canon right now, very largely built out of writings from significant leaders and, people like are documents like, for example, The Age of Reason by Thomas Paine. Also a passage from the Book of Mormon, if you can believe it, the 1830 edition, which is in public domain, so we can take it. We can take as much of it as we want, and we're canonizing those things that embody our values as basically our scripture. And we are a 501c3 organization. For some reason, people are shocked whenever are shocked to learn that, and it's like the first question people ask, "Oh, are you a 501c3?" Yeah, we are a church registered through the state of Utah. When you register a church in any state in the union, you are automatically a 501c3. There's a little bit of a tax difference for why when people establish as a 501c3 with the IRS separately. But as far as from the donors' perspectives, the members' perspective, we are a 501c3 already. So, yeah. And let's see. Some other things about us, just real. So mainly what we do, we kind of govern our church on what I call the ship of fools philosophy, which is that the central government of the church, is a spiritual community, the spiritual leaders. We have a group of basically apostles that we call the heralds. I am the first herald, and we just announced on Sunday that I'll be ordaining the second herald, who is Jenny Gage from Life Take Two. And we are actively looking to find who will make up all of our clergy for the church at a larger pace. We have missions of reason, which are our equivalent of congregations, also our missions, which are mainly populated by luminaries. So we kind of take luminaries are kind of like missionaries. We're taking from a cart before the horse kind of approach, which is to say, you don't have to be a member of our church to be a luminary. But if you want to become a luminary and become a member of the church, of course you can, if that's the thing that you want to do. But so luminaries basically are part of our missions to engage in our missions, which are, instead of knocking on doors and irritating people with, "Hey, have you heard the good news of nihilism and atheism?" Instead, what we do is we go out and we put blankets on people. We are starting missions of reason to coordinate purchasing and distributing art from emerging artists and helping to get emerging artists to be established, because we believe that art is an expression of the light of reason. Things like that. So we'll be doing a lot more missions of reason. One of our main missions of reason going forward is going to be my podcast, Hellfire Agency, where we encourage people to think critically about religion and religious scandals using the light of reason. So,
Okay, Joe, I've got a question here from one of my viewers. And basically, Just Me Danny is asking, why does he put blankets on people?
Good question. Very good question. Here in Utah, we have people who freeze to death every year. And we have these warming centers. And like Jules was saying a little bit earlier, we have these nights where when the temperature drops below 18 degrees, which is freakishly cold, then they call it code blue, which means that churches mainly can open their doors and let people in off the streets to come in and sleep between the pews of the church. And
which is kind of, Joe, let me interject there, because when you're in a hospital and they say a code blue, it usually means someone's passed.
Right.
You got to go do CPR on them.
Right. And it's like, which is wild, but it's not just that that's what they call it. It's really effectively what that is, because that is well below the temperature that a person could freeze to death. And so it's like, what has happened now is here in Utah, the churches that open their doors to the unhoused are all of the non-Mormon churches. And well, all of the ones that do are non-Mormon churches, except for one called the Community of Christ. The Community of Christ Church is a Mormon church. It's just not the one people know. It was started by Emma Smith, the wife of Joseph Smith, when after he was unalived out in Illinois, and they are currently on their last legs. They've been for the last 10, 20 years. They've been losing members and bleeding money for a while. They're on their way out. So, but they are one of the few churches that actually opens their doors to people who are unhoused to do what people would call Christian work. Unfortunately, 2020 did the same damage to them they did to most Christian churches, which is that people stopped attending, stopped putting money in the offering plate. Can't put money in the offering plate if you're not at church. Well, I guess you could nowadays, but people just don't. And so, anyways, so the point is that we started communicating with the non-denominational groups that are out here trying to help these people, because the Mormons, frankly, in our area, in our state, are trying to get these warming centers shut down. They're trying to keep the state from opening more warming centers. They're trying to prevent the churches from opening as warming centers. And they want these people out in the cold. And it's just about the most apathetic, most un-Christ-like behavior you can imagine. And so we, as the Church of Korihor, I said, one of my directors says, I volunteer at these warming centers. And one of the things that they've been doing is they're trying to pass city ordinances that say churches can't open warming centers at night. And because then their excuse, of course, in their minds, warming centers bring, drugs and crime and so forth into the neighborhoods, which is so dumb. It's completely illogical. Your kids are dealing the drugs out of your medicine cabinet onto the street. It's extremely lucrative for them. And you think that, homeless people are going to bring it to you. It's not the homeless who are bringing crime and drugs into the community. It's doctors, if anybody. And so, don't tell anybody at work I said that, Jules. But but the thing is that while they're doing that, we've been going to these non-denominational groups and saying, okay, what kinds of things do you need? We're a small church, we're a poor church. Right now, we just opened a bank account today, and it has officially $0. We are a church with $0 in the bank, and I'm like, but what can we do? And they said, go get blankets. And we're like, oh, I could go pick up blankets. And since I've mentioned this to people, started saying it to people, they're like, come by my house, pick up some blankets. And so I've been going and picking up blankets. And eventually I figured out that, we waste so much time going around picking up these blankets. We could get more blankets if we just had people throw in money, and I'll just go in and grab some fabric and make them, or just go down to the store and buy blankets, or go online and buy blankets or something,
Okay,
And I was
Joe,
talking.
I've got another question here from
Yeah.
one of my good subs here, Claudia. Says, would it make sense to open warming centers during the night, when it's needed most? Can you explain to her what your concept really is behind the libraries?
Yeah, it's a good idea. It's a good question. Yeah, so like I was talking to my guy Nate, they're trying to keep the churches from doing it. Warming centers do only open at night here in Utah. So and first thing in the morning, they kick them right back out on the street. Sometimes they feed them if they've got the resources, but generally they kick them out first light, and then volunteers come in and clean the place. But what they started to do is they started to try and shut them down. So the churches started to say, oh, these aren't warming centers. We're having all night movie night. So they take the projector where they normally put like the lyrics of the songs and things up on the screen. They started projecting movies, started popping a DVD in there, just playing movies in the church all night. And they say, you can't tell us we can't have all night movie night, and you can't tell us who we can and cannot invite to all night movie night. And I got to say, these Christians are pretty clever. That's pretty good. I mean, that was a pretty good idea. I said to my man Nate, who was one of our directors of the church and a volunteer at these warming centers. We were volunteering, he and I, at one of these warming centers on Thanksgiving. I said, why all night movie night? Why not a library? Because for a church of reason, to have a church, we have sermons. We could have a church, but we wouldn't get that much use out of it as a church. It's like a worship center. We'd use it occasionally. We'd use it for like ceremonies. We have rituals and things. And but I said, but a library, that's on brand for a church of atheists, a church of reason. And I said, what we could do is we could buy some of these Mormon church houses, because the Mormon church is selling its church houses. That's how badly they're doing right now in membership. They're closing whole congregations, just deleting them right now. And so they have whole buildings that are sitting there, and it's just an eyesore on the church that they have these empty buildings that nobody goes to church. And so they're looking to sell them as quickly as possible, and selling them, frankly, pretty cheap. And we started to say among us in the ex-Mormon community, man, we should just everybody throw in a few dollars and just buy one of these. We could easily buy a Mormon church house. You know, they're selling them literally at like $1.5 million. If you've ever seen a Mormon church house, that's a steal of a deal here in Utah. Okay. Like the ground they're sitting on is worth more than that. And so
you got a compliment over here. You got someone that says, this man is clearly very intelligent, creative, and witty.
Well, thank
that's
you.
That's from someone, they call themselves the horse has fallen from grace.
Well, thank you, horse. Yes, no, well, thank you very much. That's very kind. So hopefully that answers your question. So basically, the thing is this: the church will oftentimes write covenants where they will say, you have to have, if you're going to buy our church, one of our church houses, you have to use it as a church, and you have to be an organization that is a religious institution. At least that's the rumor. And so we gave up on it here in the ex-Mormon community. It was like, well, okay, well, we're not a church. And so that's basically how they're keeping us from turning them into shelters. But even then, they can use zoning laws to keep them from being turned into shelters. So we said, well, here's what we do then. I said to my man Nate, who was one of my directors, I said, look, here's what we do. We start a library, and we say it's a 24-hour library. Come on in, grab a book, find a nice place to settle in, a little nook. I said, and then we'll make some little reading nooks that have like a door you can close, and then a comfortable little mattress in there, and a blanket and a pillow so you can read all night if you want to. And just go, you grab a book, and then you find yourself a little reading nook, and then you can sit there and read all night if you want to in privacy. And it's basically all night movie night on a whole new level. And so that's what we've been talking about doing is, the way we're doing it right now is, first priority is we got to get blankets. We've set ourselves the goal, because we're already halfway through this winter. Well, almost. We set ourselves a goal of making and distributing 300 blankets here in Utah. And the way we're doing is we're going to be selling some coins. Well, we're going to be giving challenge coins in return for a donation of $25. And they're really funny little coins that say, I bought $25 worth of spite against the Mormon church to keep people warm in Utah in 2025. And all I got was this cheap token of my vendetta, and I regret nothing, and
this is what a challenge coin looks like, everybody. Challenge coins were developed by military and veterans. They actually have a story to them. It's when they get deployed or anything, they're given to them. This is mine from when I used to be on a disaster response team. So veterans and military men will carry these in their wallet, and they're called a challenge coin because if one pulls it out of his wallet and they're out drinking and they throw it on the table, and everybody throws theirs out and someone's missing theirs, they have to buy shots for everybody. But if they throw it on the table and everybody throws one down, he has to buy shots, or she, I should say. So,
Hey, it's a great idea.
yeah, I think
I
it's a
love
great
that.
idea.
From the time you told me that, I was like, oh, that's an awesome idea. I didn't even know about that when I just came across, oh, you should make challenge coins. I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, what can we do to like encourage people to give donations besides just, hey, send money to this thing? And it's like, oh, you should sell challenge coins. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And we came up with the design and everything. And then I told Jules about it, and she's like, "Oh yeah, it's a challenge coin." And then she told me this whole story. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's even better! I didn't even know that." But I love
think
the
it's
idea.
even better since being Exmos, they always say back then we'd have to follow the word of wisdom.
That's right.
And,
now we
that
can
means we
drink,
couldn't drink alcohol.
which is wild because
So,
Joseph Smith was an alcoholic. You know that, right? I mean,
yeah.
he was a serious boozer. So it's like it's just funny. I mean, people say really. The reason why Brigham Young went so hard on, no drinking whiskey was that basically he saw how Joseph Smith, basically ran himself into the ground and ran the church into the ground with his boozing. It was like, wow, you get these rules made by people who can't control themselves and think, oh, obviously nobody else can control themselves either. It's like, well, I don't know about that. I can I can hold my liquor just fine.
No, someone's saying here, great way or a creative way to incorporate challenge coins.
Yeah.
I think, Joe, you should probably give them a little, maybe tell them why you called it the Church of Horror. Maybe, because many people here probably won't know the story of Horror.
I love to tell the story of Korihor. So Korihor is an atheist character from the Book of Mormon. He is fictional. That's fine with us. All other churches are built around fictional beings. We can do it too. And Korihor, it says in the Book of Mormon, taught people to basically ask questions about what it means to live in a finite life where one day you will not be here anymore. And you need to appreciate how brief life is and try to create a life that was enjoyable. As a result, the church challenged him, arrested him, which we're told in the Book of Mormon is against the law, and forced him to debate 3 Christian leaders, and he defeats all of them. At the end of the story of Korihor is very sad. It's the reason why we call him the martyr of reason, is that he is cursed by an evil Christian sorcerer to take away his voice, to make him mute. And because he earned his living by speaking, he is forced into unhousing. He's made homeless. And the Book of Mormon says that he had to go house to house begging for his food, and then eventually is trampled to death. And Mormons still tell this story from Alma, what is now Alma chapter 30, and they laugh about it. They think it's a riot. They think it's hilarious. I got to be honest with you, Jules, when I was a Mormon, I don't know how you feel, I would avoid reading Alma 30 because I hated that story. All he did was win the debates and he died for it. And it was just, and not only that, but it seems to vindicate, frankly, the way that Mormons tend to feel about unhoused people, about the unhoused population. And it's just, and so I have often said, if I belong to a religion, it wouldn't be the religion of atheism, because atheism, again, has no values. My values would be embodied in some kind of a myth. You would need a myth like a Jesus, like a Buddha, like Muhammad, a mythological story, a fictional story that embodies the values. And for me, I say, well, for me, that's Korihor. Korihor stood up for what he believed in and stood up till the very end and was basically martyred by the apathy of Christians. And so I said, that's my story. Those are my values. If anything is my values, it's Korihor. So that's why last year, and for reasons I can go into if you want to, Jules, I said, this is it. This is the year where I've decided we have to start the Church of Korihor. We've been talking about it long enough. Let's just do it. So yeah, that's the story of the Church of Korihor. So
Oh, one of my moderators is really light. She's saying it's very interesting. Uh, in fact, her name, she goes by Lena Mystic Mama. So
nice.
she she likes it because part, there was mysticism to it. But
Hey, hey,
yeah,
I like
she's one of
I
my
like
great
mysticism.
moderators. Yeah,
That's
great
great.
moderator I have on here. She does a great job of it. So,
She keep the band hammer falling on the people who come in
oh
just
yeah, she does.
too
She can
crazy,
catch them
too much.
before she catches them before the comment even comes up in the stream.
I
She's
tell
a
you
little
what,
ninja
Lena,
in the.
you tell anybody who comes in giving trouble to Jules that's my friend. That's a friend of Exmo Joe, and they can take it up with me. I'll give them a Korihor. It's funny, because Korihor's name is Korihor. And in the Book of Mormon, it says that because he taught people to question the church and whether or not the church existed just to fleece people for their money, that because of his teaching them these things, that he caused the women, yea, and also the men, to commit many whoredoms, which leads you to think, okay, why did we have to clarify the men, the women, and also the men? Isn't that the way whoredoms usually work? I'm gonna thought, well, you could have lesbian whoredoms. And so there's that. But I mean, is a whoredom adultery? Because usually that's how that's used in scripture, and in Mormon scripture particularly. Technically, it means prostitution. It's like, so what exactly is happening here? I mean, first of all, don't threaten me with a good time. I'm in. As long as everything's consensual, I'm in. But it's interesting that this theological idea that you could have somebody who teaches a value about thinking, about critical thinking, and because they teach critical thinking, that means they caused other people to sin. And it's like, it's a strange approach of looking at free will. Like, what does it mean to choose to sin if somebody can cause you to sin by teaching you to think or by encouraging you to think? And so it's like, for me, this myth just keeps giving and giving. So, but it's just interesting to me that I've many times said we should call our sacraments in the church, we should call them Korihordoms, or just whoredoms, because with an HOR. And we even have at the church, we're going to start selling these sweatshirts through Printify, and I know you like Printify. We've
Yeah,
come up with these sweatshirts that say "sweating like a whore in church." It's HOR, like Korihor. We just love to have a little fun with that. I love to start out church every Sunday. I say it's 10 o'clock a.m. in Utah. We know what that means. You whores, get your ass out of bed, get to church. So
uh,
we're having a good time.
I did. Yeah, one thing that Joe has come up for the organization for the Church of Korihor, he's come up with a lot of rituals that most churches probably wouldn't have. He does recognize the LGBTQIA plus community. What he's doing divorce rituals to celebrate divorce. And were you still going to do a coming out ceremony or not? Because I know you talked to Sam Nieves about that.
Right.
So
So right now we're thinking we may come up with an option to create a special coming out ritual. But right now, what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and keep it at part of the chosen family banquet. That way,
right.
the idea of the chosen family banquet is that it is a closed doors, private community celebration. Each celebration is like its own private community, so that people feel a little more safe to come out and to share with people that they love and say, this is a part of me and who I am. And so the ritual, so yes, there will be a coming out ritual. It'll just be a part of the chosen family banquet for now.
Okay, how about explaining how we talked about for trans
So
community?
transition right now, we're still looking at having at celebrating it as part of the chosen family banquet as an option in there, but also as an independent ritual, because so far I think that that's something that trans people so far have expressed a lot of interest in, and I'm open to hearing any kinds of ideas about that. But basically, each one will be custom tailored to the individual person. They'll book an appointment to speak with a luminary, who are our missionaries. The luminary will kind of go over what it is that we might incorporate, go over things like budgetary concerns, who is invited, who isn't invited. Do you want to live stream it on the internet so that people who are far away can witness it, and so forth? Do you want it to be witnessed in person by a luminary, so forth, so on and so forth? And we're calling it, we were calling it the Aurora, which is Latin for dawn, until I had a conversation with Jules. And Jules came up with this suggestion that, in the trans community, the imagery of a butterfly is very common, and people love this idea of a butterfly. And so it was based on Jules' suggestion that I said, well, maybe we'll call it a chrysalis instead. And so far, every trans person I have talked to about it loves this idea. We call it the chrysalis. And so people can customize their own ritual. We'll go over like what, all the steps of what will actually be involved in it with each individual person. And I'm hoping to have Jules helping us to create and craft some of the individual elements that people can incorporate into a chrysalis. And so it'll be fun, it'll be something, it'll be less like a baptism, which is kind of boring when you think about it, and more of like a wedding. That's like the closest thing, like a wedding. You have somebody, you choose if you're going to have a song, and you choose if the officiant is going to speak, and you choose pick and match the different elements that you want in the event, so that it's individualized to an individual person. And we're going to do each one individualized. So that's the plan at this rate.
Anybody over here have any questions for Joe? Or Joe, do you have any other things we can talk about? I mean, our biggest initiative right now will be blankets and handing those out.
Yeah, so right now we don't have any donation button set up, unfortunately, because like I said, we just got our bank account today. But in the near future, people will be able to go to corahor.org. They'll be able to donate directly to the church, or they'll be able to donate directly to the missions. And that will be where people will be able to get involved. The other way to get involved is to volunteer to be one of our luminaries, which Jules has asked if she could become a luminary, and we definitely are going to get that going here in the next week, I hope. Basically, though, with our luminaries, you don't have to be a member of our church, but you are expected to pass a background check, a criminal background check, and to be fingerprinted with the church, so that we can so we can weed out jerks. But we're, as far as I know, we are the only church with a lay clergy that actually does that. Mormon church, they straight up, I mean, we've been hit lately with one story after another of clergy in the Mormon church who it was very well known that they were doing evil things even with children. And they just, and their leadership knew about it, and they got promoted to being clergy anyways. So yeah.
I've got a comment.
Like Brights. Yeah, I see that now. Yeah.
Drace, you saw that?
Yeah, I
Drace
see that
is another one.
Drace.
Drace is another one of my moderators. She's up in Canada.
Oh, cool.
So
yeah. I definitely
get
the correlation to Brights. Yeah. I don't think that Brights was a great idea, to be honest with you. I don't know if you know about this, Jules, about the Brights.
No,
This kind of,
no,
so
I
yeah,
don't.
so it was suggested a while ago that atheists should take a play from the gay community, from the community of gays, and say, let's come up with it. Let's take a word and take it like gay, right? Like the word gay. And it's like, yeah,
Mhm.
we'll take a word and that'll be our rebranding as atheists. So we call ourselves the Brights. And that was the decision, and everyone hated it for good reason. It's not a good idea. But yeah, the luminaries, the reason why we call them luminaries in the church is we believe that we worship the light of reason instead of God. So as a result, our missionaries are luminaries because they light the world with the light of reason. For now, we'll change it if we hate it.
So yeah, Joe says that this is meant to be a way. If we mess up, we mess up and start all over.
That's right.
I
I
think that's
say, you know,
okay.
you like that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
basically, I'm a pessimist. Which is say a philosophical pessimist. I believe that we have to lean into the future just expecting that we're going to fail. But let's fail faster and fail faster. Learn each time we do fail, until eventually we figure out all the ways to fail, or we succeed. You know, one way or another, we're going to get to figuring out the right way by figuring out a few wrong ways. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Jules. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do a few things, just do it wrong. Right? You're gonna. I hate this phrase because of the corporation it's affiliated with, but we are going to more or less run fast and break things for a while. And so we're excited to fail. We're not afraid to fail. We're excited about it.
Oh,
Sounds
did you see Dre's on
Yeah,
there?
that
Put another
sounds like a
comment
hacker
about.
model. Yeah, there are actually like business gurus who talk about failing faster. It sounds very Silicon Valley. It does, but I'm cool with it. I'm not a Silicon Valley bro, but I do like the idea of it.
Any questions, anybody? Please feel free to ask for Joe. Like I said, this is really cool because it is something that's mainly geared to help others rather than giving money to someone that's just going to put in a bank account and gather $300 billion as the organization we both belonged to before in the past. Like I said, I've stated in the past, I've resigned, and it's now official thanks to Joe. He sent my letter is sending my letter into Salt Lake.
Certificate.
Uh, Joe got out the other way.
That's right. That's right. It'll probably
He
be the
was
same way for you in the end.
he was excommunicated. You know what? What I have here, Joe, that's kind of funny. I always bring it up uh, on my high demand religions videos. You know how they always say give the priesthood to women? I still have my Melchizedek priesthood certificate.
They inadvertently did it. Yeah. I don't know
I have an old
do you know, I don't know if you've seen this, but one of the people on Mormon Stories, one of John DeLynne's interviewees, those who don't know, Mormon Stories is a podcast mainly of people who have deconstructed Mormonism. And one of them is a trans woman who designed temples, was an architect who made temples for the Mormon Church. Those are the big, beautiful buildings. Well, they are pretty buildings, but she was basically, she was deep inside the organization of the church when people began to realize that she was different, that she wasn't like the other men in the church, right? And so she started to come out to people and tell them, I'm a woman. People, and I'm ordained to the priesthood. I, work for the church and everything. But the truth of the matter is that I'm a woman. as she did, it became tricky for them, because how do you tell people they're worshiping in a temple that's designed by a trans woman in a church that's extremely transphobic? And it's like, just gonna have to say it. So yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah, their horrible new policy that they passed back in August against trans people.
yeah. Tell us
That
about
thing's basically I actually did a video on it. I've actually done 2 videos on it. I did the breakdown that MSNBC did on it, and I've done reading word for word the policy. But basically, they're stating that the Mormon Church will treat all trans people as if what they won't recognize your new name. They will treat you basically like you're committing the almost a sin as bad as murder, and that you cannot have any leadership positions, especially around the youth. And so in the Mormon Church, they have 2 groups. You split up at the end on your. There used to be 3 hours. I don't know how it works now with the 2-hour block. And it would go to the men that would go to priesthood, and the women would go to what they call Relief Society, and that they won't let you go. But like myself, I wouldn't be allowed to go to the Relief Society meetings. I would have to still go to the priesthood ones, where you'd probably get stared at by each and every guy. So they're
Yeah.
they have some horrible transphobe policies.
Yeah. Yeah, and this goes back, to the early days of the church. There's a lot of this prejudice against trans people and against gay people, against queer people in general. Even you could make a very good case that they were that one of the communities that's most hurt is asexual people. The church is a very sex focused organization, for a church that insists that queer people shouldn't be having any sex at all. So it's interesting, because then they have people who choose not to have sex because they don't want to, or because they don't want to have children, they don't want to run the risk of it, or because they who knows how many ace people are actually gay and just don't want to be forced to have sex with somebody of a gender that they don't feel attracted to. And so it's like, they've had these really backwards policies, but probably the one that was previous to this one that was most shocking was the November 5th policy, which basically said that the children of gay couples, after the Obergefell decision, that the children of gay couples couldn't participate in church activities, they couldn't be baptized until they were old enough to renounce their parents' marriage as sinful, basically. And it was like, gosh, even hitting the kids of gay people it's shocking how with the kindest of words, with the gentlest kid gloves, they will just backhand slap you all the way, out the doors of the church. It's frankly disgusting, to be quite blunt with you.
I've got one question here from Claudia. I don't know if you see it over on your screen.
I do.
It says, wouldn't that be discriminatory? Very hypocritical of the Mormon Church. Yeah, the thing is, they gaslight you a lot, Claudia. They'll treat you nice, bring you in, they lure you in. When I was brought into the church by a concept called the flirt to convert. I met male missionaries, but who do you think came and taught me at a friend's house? Or female missionaries? And usually missionaries that are out there are gorgeous. And that's how they lure you in. They take notes on, as you are talking to them, find out everything about you to, find out, which lessons to use on you. And I think this is what a lot of churches do. They try to find everything about you and, construct a certain way to, get you in.
Yeah. I was one of the rare exceptions. I was an ugly missionary, but when I was 19 to 21, I didn't flirt to convert anybody. Oh, no, that's not true. There was one. There was one. Her name was Amy. It was magical.
I'm gonna find
And
that hard to believe, Joe.
I'll show you pictures sometime. Oh, yeah. In fact, I got
No,
one.
no, I'm talking about not doing a flirt to convert.
Oh, yeah. Okay. There was Coney. There was Coney.
Never-
No, but probably can't see very well, but that's me as a missionary. I'm repairing my broken shoes there. That's me standing in front of a church house in Lima, Peru. But this is my book, The Cora Horror Argument, I published 10 years ago. All the people who are ever going to read it have read it already. But yeah, what was I telling you about my mission? Oh, as a missionary, we had this thing called the commitment pattern that we were taught. And the Mormon Church didn't realize that in training me to be a missionary, they were going to train the leader of the Church of Korihor. I didn't know it then either, but now they're going to find out. But one of the first steps is called BRT, build relationships of trust. And basically, that's what happened to you, Jules. This whole flirt to convert thing. The first thing that Mormon missionaries will do is they will try to get you in on their side, be friendly, do anything they can to establish I am like you and we are happy. I am happy. You could be happy, and kind of shiny, happy people you into a personal relationship with them. And then bring until they get you into the church, get you converted, get you committed to pay tithing to the church. And then the next thing you know, they get transferred to another area. You never see or hear from them again in most cases. I don't know if that's what's happened with the young ladies who brought you into the church, but that's pretty common.
Well, actually, left her mission like a week after I was baptized. And the next week, she drove back down from Utah to visit.
Oh, wow.
Because she was going to be like, yeah. And then, and she had some friends with her, and I was still living in San Diego, and we drove up to the Pioneer Center there. But it was strange to, and then she says, call me Tammy instead of, sister, you know?
Do you know she stayed with the church?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah, she says.
No, she was done with her mission within a week after my conversion. So she went back home and then drove from BYU down.
I see. I misunderstood. So you're saying she was done with her 18 months. So she didn't
leave.
Yeah,
she was done with her 18 months. So.
I gotcha. Yes, in the Mormon Church, girls sister missionaries serve 18 months, and the males serve 24 months. So, and that's still the case, I think, pretty much.
Yeah. Now they can just go at a younger age, I think.
Yeah.
They can go right out of high school.
Right. The boys, they said, in my service, you had to be 19. Which meant that a lot of guys I went to high school with didn't make it to the mission because they ended up sleeping with somebody between high school and when they left. And usually people at least the way we were given to understand, if you had sex with your boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever, you weren't going to go on a mission. You were just going to get married to that person, regardless of whether there was a pregnancy. So. It was different time, right? Now it's totally. I mean, maybe it's not totally different. It seems different to me, but now you have all these younger people. They all done soaking. In fact, there's one of my favorite shows is a thing called Game Changers here on YouTube, and on Dropout channel. They have this. It's an improv show, and they're like, okay, two people, and they're like, okay. A Mormon parent has the soaking conversation with their teenager, and it's so funny because like the one of them goes, "I don't know what soaking is. What does soaking mean?" And the other one's like, "I got you," and so she explains it to them, and it's like, "What?" Soaking. Wild.
Oh, I know. I can't believe they came up with that. Some
In my
people think it's
day,
a myth. Mm.
in my day, yeah, many people think it's a myth. I won't tell you how I know it's true. I just know it's true. Uh, dating, polyamorous
So,
dating in Utah
okay,
is a very interesting thing.
Drace is asking, what did I miss?
But if you stepped away
What?
in the soaking conversation, you missed a lot.
Okay, Drace, we were talking about, we got a little bit into our former church here since we're both ex-Mormons, and we were talking about uh, when some young adults may commit sexual sin and how some young men wouldn't be able to go on their mission.
Right.
Now there are stories that go around BYU and stuff like that about people saying that they don't commit it because they do a ritual or something called, and they call it soaking. And it's kind of a hard thing to explain. Um, and well, I'm not monetized yet. So, but basically, and Grenfell, Alyssa Grenfell, she explains it a lot.
Right.
But it's basically what they say is people there at BYU will, oh, you learned, oh, Lena is saying she learned about it from Cults to Consciousness from
She's great.
Shalise.
I love cults of
Yeah.
consciousness.
Well, no, I'll tell you,
Yeah.
Grace. I basically people at BYU, because if they do any sexual sin, according to Mormon religion, or the Mormon God, is basically what they found is like what they consider a loophole. So they will, be in the dorms and do whatever, and the male will insert the penis into the female, but no thrusting. And they consider it not being sex. So it's not considered they don't consider it a sexual sin.
It's like holding hands. It's not
So,
holding hands unless you do the arm swing. It's like that kind
well,
of.
I've heard of it. Now, a friend of mine told me when he was at BYU, some of them would run down to Vegas, get married just for a short while, then annul it.
That was in my time. They called them super dates. They would go down to Vegas because Vegas is not that long of a trip from Provo, and so
No.
they would do a weekend where they go down, have a chapel wedding, which is frowned on in Mormonism, but it isn't adultery if you get married and then sleep with somebody civilly, or get married civilly and then sleep with them as civilly or uncivilly as you like, and then get it annulled in the morning and go back. But yeah, I knew people got excommunicated for that.
Yes, Claudia, it is considered a sin if they thrust. So
Let's be
this
clear.
is like one of the
According to the church itself, all of this is adultery. It's just the young people themselves who think this.
Yeah.
Hey, Gene's here. Go ahead. Sorry.
Who's there?
Gene is over at Hellfire Agency. Gene from Ladder Daily Digest. Yeah. Hey, Gene.
Okay. Cool. Okay, Joe.
But yeah, so
go ahead.
the innovation on soaking is, I forget the name for it, but they would have a friend who will come. So they'll do the horizontal lay and soak on a bed, and then they have a friend come along and stand on the mattress next to them and jump up and down on the mattress.
Oh my goodness! You guys see why we're out of this faith? I know we've gotten away from Joe's little initiative here, but the stories you can tell about what's and so it's amazing what they'll come up with in the church.
Yeah. I was
Look at Dre's comment. Talk about self-control or lack of self-awareness that they might be asexual or romantic. Actually, Trace, there is a lack of awareness because many young people that are within the church will not be taught about consent when they're young, or they'll not be taught of what intercourse is, and they don't know what to do when they're older. They're even if they're going to be in some kind of class in high school where they're teaching about it, the parents won't allow it.
Yeah.
So
And
it is lack of self-awareness.
you know, I don't know if this would be of interest to your audience, Jules, but if you'd like, I could pull up one of our new hymns that we haven't used in Sunday sermon yet. But I don't know if you know the story, but a lot of young women in the Mormon Church are taught that losing your virginity is like a licked cupcake. And what they do is they bring in a box of cupcakes. Yeah. You've heard about this. They hand out cupcakes and that are frosted cupcakes, and then everybody takes one, and then they tell them lick some frosting off. So they lick off some frosting, and they say, rather than eating them, hand them to the person next to you, and then each of you look at that licked cupcake and then bite into it. And they'd go, that's disgusting. And then they would eat their cupcake. But then they'd explain them, that's like losing your virginity. If your husband comes to your wedding night and discovers that your cupcake's already been licked, he's going to be too disgusted to want you. And this creates such a terrible toxicity. And so one of the things that we've been doing to kind of reinforce body positivity, and one of the 12 values of quarterhorism is body and sex positivity. And so one of the things that we've done is we've created a hymn called Lick My Cupcake, just about basically reversing that. I'm not going to play it for you unless people really want it, but I'd be happy to play that
so
for you.
Let's see what my subs have to say. You guys want to hear the song Lick My Cupcake?
Yep, up and down vote. Up, down, up, down, up, down. We have another one, and I'll tell this story while you're getting votes.
Teresa said play it.
All right, we need a quorum. Who else has play? Jeannie, you still at Hellfire Agency?
I've got Dre, Claudia, Lena, the Mystic saying yes. I got a thumbs up from Dre.
Dope.
I'm getting a bunch. We're doing it, you guys.
We're doing this. Okay, so let me see if I find it on my computer. Lick my cupcake. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Gum stuck to my shoe. Heavy petting in the neon hue. Cracked vase on the kitchen floor. I get what I want, then I want more. The way you look at me is a quiz. Hair teased high like a wild storm. In your arms I feel so warm.
Yeah. So I came up with the prompt. I just prompted AI and I'm like, do this, and AI wrote it. This is one of the few that was actually written entirely by AI with just a prompt.
Sugar-coated invitation. Don't you know it's such a sin when you don't dig in? Ripped tights and a leather jacket. Got a secret, can you hack it? Lights blur as we drive fast. Make this moment last and last. reckless team. 80s music in the air, nobody else can compare. Lick my cupcake, sweet sensation. It's a sugar-coated invitation. Don't you know it's such a sin when you don't dig in? When you don't dig in. Pink lipstick on your collar scream. We make a pretty reckless team. 80s music in the air, nobody else can compare. Lick my cupcake, sweet sensation. It's a sugar-coated invitation. Don't you know it's such a sin when you don't dig in? When you don't dig in.
Thought you'd get a kick out of
Oh, that was a good one, Joe.
that.
Honestly, look, you're getting lots of uh, hearts, and Lena give you a little, wine toast here. And then did you see Grace's comment here? AI
Yep,
leading
yep.
the charge of godless upon the goat believers.
That's
Uh,
right. That's right. We got AI on our side. AI is with us who can be against us. That's what I say. Yeah, but I have this other one. It's called
I love that it mentions 80s music.
yeah. I told it make it like a 1980s girl power rock ballad, and I think it got it. I think it nailed it.
Look at Claudia's comment here.
I'll be blasting this on my way to work now. I'm actually gonna get them all published on Spotify so people can just add it to their list. I have this other one
Lena,
that we create. Go ahead, sorry.
Lena, you liking this live stream? I know it's a little different.
We try to have fun at the Church of Korihor. We talk about enough heavy subjects, so it's like every once in a while we got to blow off steam. Do you know the so Jules, do you know the little factory talk?
No, but I can guess what it's about.
Okay, guess. Let's see, Jules.
How many times have you guys gotten this much music on Jules Treasures? Original stuff, dude.
I have more. Do you guys want to hear another one? It has to do with the little factory talk. That's why I asked. So, okay, I'll tell you this because you didn't grow up in the church. I grew up traumatized by Mormonism, while Jules grew up traumatized by Catholicism. So, in the Mormon Church, when you go into your bishop and confess that that you enjoy time alone as a boy, you get a pamphlet called "To Young Men Only," and the whole pamphlet is just one talk by an old man named Boyd K. Packer, which makes it all the more gross. In which
Did he write the miracle? Did he write the miracle of forgiveness also?
No, that's Spencer W. Kimball. He was even more toxic.
Because I got given that. I got that. I got given that book.
Oh God. What a nightmare that book is. I have it here somewhere. Do I have it right here? I have it here somewhere. Oh, that book was so terrifying. But no, this one was just a pamphlet with very tiny print. But basically it was this talk that he gave years ago where he explains that your body as a young man, you have a body that makes bodies for Heavenly Father's spirit children. And and you have this little factory, some littler than others. I strongly suspect Boyd's was one of them. that would make these the miraculous substance that became these lives. Chick tracts. Oh my gosh, Trace. Chick tracts. I have to say, as an atheist, chick tracts are like one of my secret guilty pleasures. I love me a chick tract. Those are so funny. I don't know any Christian who thinks those chick tracts were a good idea. Jack Chick, wasn't that the guy's name? Anyways, but he says, here's the thing. Long before you are authorized to produce with your little factory, your reservoir will start filling up to capacity. And so one night, while you are asleep, God will for your benefit, with no guilt, just a freebie, God will reach down and pull the relief valve on your reservoir, on your little factory, just to clean out the pipes. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's totally natural, totally normal. Don't be worried. Where it gets really right, Chase picked right up on it. Where it gets really sinful, though, is those wicked priesthood holders who take hold of their own relief valve and pull their own relief valve. So that's
what we should do is explain to them that young men received a priesthood at what? The Aaronic is at 12?
At 12 years old. Yep. You get ordained a deacon.
You're ordained a deacon.
Here in the Church of Korihor, you can't even join our church until you're 18. But I was ordained a deacon at 12 years old and held the priesthood, and not just that. I will confess to holding a little factory once in a while myself. My own, not anyone else's. So I created another hymn using artificial intelligence. If people want to hear it, it's called Blinded by, let's see, I can't remember what's Blinded by the Relief. Anybody who wants to hear about the relief valve song, we'll play it, but only if people want it. Still has Lit My Cupcake stuck in your mind. It's a good song, right? Like my wife told me, she said, she's like, your hymns are fine. She's like, but they're very wordy. They're very heady. They're very Joe. And she's like, I wish they sounded like real songs. So I started writing these.
Claudia saying yes.
Claudia says yes.
Dre? Lena?
Is Lena up for it? Religion General. Yeah,
Come on,
I agree with that. The Mystics say yes too? I mean, that's
no, I don't. Okay. Go, she just said it. Okay. She says, "Go for it."
All right, be it on your own souls. You all know if there's a God, you all are going to hell for this, right? So I'm into it though. I'll be there, and so will George Carlin. I'll tell that story if you want some. Okay, so this is Blinded by the Relief. Again, 80s rock ballad.
Yeah.
Clock ticks away the dreary day. Hands bound to gears, can't find a way. Boss man barking, no time to breathe. Time to let the steam out, let go of the leash. Sneak to the back where shadows play. Feeling the pressure, gotta release, hey. Hairy palms, they say it's all lies. Close my eyes, count to 3, oh, the prize. Release the valve, hear the hiss. A moment alone, pure bliss. They say I'll go blind, but I see all I need in this factory. Machines grind louder, drowning my groans under fluorescent lights. I'm in the zone. No safety net, this is my fix. True freedom in a covert mix. the meters spike. Clueless to my nightly delight. I hold the power in my own hands. Hidden in shadows, I make my stand. Eyes blur from fluorescent light. Every night feels just right. Count to 3, feel alive. This is how I survive.
Cool.
Release the valve, hear the hiss. A moment alone, pure bliss. They say I'll go blind, but I see all I need in this factory. Release the valve, hear the hiss. A moment alone, pure bliss. They say I'll go blind, but I see all I need in this factory. Machines grind louder, drowning my groans under fluorescent lights. I'm in the zone, no safety net. This is my fix, true freedom in a covered mix. Boss man wonders why the meters spike. Clueless to my nightly delight. I hold the power in my own hands. Hidden in shadows, I make my stand. Boss man wonders why the meters spike. Clueless to my nightly delight. I hold the power in my own hands. Hidden in shadows,
Joe, I want
Yep.
you to look here in the stream. I
Mhm.
have one of my subs here. Her name is Deja Love,
Yeah.
and she is a great modern artist.
I am familiar with Deja Love's work actually, because we've talked about Deja before, and I've gone through. Deja's creating good work out there. I'm very
Yeah.
excited to see more from her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'd love to know Deja's opinion on this. One of our at the Church of Korihor, one of the things that we're doing is we're launching what we call missions of patronage, in which we want to help emerging artists, especially, to be able to make their living actually creating art and to not have to stress. And so we're going to be doing some more interviews on Church for Atheists on my channel, with like art consultants, for example, because I don't know how many people out there know this. Art is like the hottest commodity out there right now. People don't want to invest in gold and silver and real estate anymore. They want art. And so it's like, why should we have artists who are starving out there when we've got, Wall Street bros and people who are looking to buy art? So I'm like, okay, the problem though is that in the art world, there's so many scams. And DJ, I'd love to hear you weigh in on this if you've seen this. I talked a little bit about this on Sunday sermon, that I saw, for example, there's this YouTube channel of a guy who got talked into giving his art to an exhibit with a gallery, and they just like at the night of the exhibit, he spent all of this money and all this time sending his artwork to this exhibit in this other city, and they just contacted him and said, "Hey, Bob," and said, none of your artwork's sold, and he was disappointed. They sent the artwork back to him, and it was all destroyed. And basically, what it was is that this gallery is just an insurance scam. They just run it and run it and run it, where they just get you to send your art, they insure it, and get you to help pay for the insurance on the art, and then they make a claim on it. And it's like this is just ordinary stuff going on in the art world. And it's just it's ridiculous. And so I've been saying for a while, if we believe, as we do in the Church of Korihor, that art is an expression of the light of reason. And it's perhaps one, in fact, I'm writing a book that's going to be published later at the end of this month. This is a little sneak peek, called All My Prophets Paint. Basically about how personally, if I have any scripture, it's not written down in words, it's put down in paint and sculpture too, frankly. And I've been saying, why can't a church have art galleries? I mean, it makes total sense to me that a church would be, that if I wanted to worship somewhere in a building, I would get an art gallery and just cycle through emerging artists' work and get people coming through these galleries who have the means to pay reasonably for them, so that people can live their lives doing actual work. Maven is here at Hellfire Agency. Maven's one of my very favorite people. Thank you for being here, Maven. Oh my gosh, Maven and Gene in the same place at the same time. Yeah.
Hello, Maven.
Are
I've
you-
seen you online. I think everything I've seen from you is fantastic.
Aw, did you hear that, Maven? Maven's our girl. She's one of the best people making content out there. Yeah, I love that, DJ. That's absolutely right. DJ's got it. It's another way of giving praise, but for each other. I'm working right now on a video. It'll be our first motivational and promotional video for the Church of Korihor, based on my first godless sermon, which is called "We're Going Home." And in that sermon, I'm very passionate about this, so forgive me if I just rant for a moment. I say we need a religion for atheists and agnostics. We need more atheists and agnostics than ever before to get religion. But instead of a religion about God, we need a religion about us. So, hey, that's all right, Maven. I'm glad that you're here. Yay. Yeah. You know what? Better late than never. And it's good. We've been going only for an hour and a half almost, but I've been having a blast. I don't know. Jules' channel, they got lots of great people over there. So that's right. Gene says a rational thinking religion. That's exactly right. So this is, I'm passionate about this idea that, I wouldn't really call myself a humanist, because I think humans suck. But I do think that the light of reason, which is that part of us that is the best, that represents our ingenuity, represents our creativity, and represents our love. I think that's where we are being the best version of ourselves. And some people call that God. I say that's BS, because God has to be eternal, in my opinion. So, and has to be all good, all powerful, all loving. I don't think the light of reason is any of that. But I do think, yeah, go ahead, Jules.
Did you see? Oh, over here on my side, I did probably see it too. Did you see and it caught my attention. Deja's comment says, for our celebration of cosmos that we all share together.
Yeah.
Which catches my attention because of your logo. Has to do with the cosmos.
It sure does. Yeah. And yeah, I love that. I love that, Deja. That's exactly right. And furthermore, the television show Cosmos. People who are fans of Cosmos will recognize lyrics in my songs, because I'll frequently make call outs to, like, our first solstice song is called what am I thinking? It's called An Apple Pie from Scratch, because it's about Sir Isaac Newton. Jesus was not born on December 25th. As a matter of fact, I personally don't think Jesus was born at all. But Sir Isaac Newton was, and he was one of the most brilliant people to ever live, frankly. He had his flaws like any of us, but so for our solstice song, we have a song called An Apple Pie from Scratch, which is a quote by Carl Sagan from Cosmos. Geeks like me are
correct.
Geeks.
Correct, Deja. We believe in science. If you do you remember Nacho Libre?
Yeah. Because I only believe in science. I love that. I love that movie.
El esqueleto.
Are we calling is Maven? Are you asking if the church calls it a nonprofit? Because we are a nonprofit, but according to the Internal Revenue Service, we're a church, and according to the state of Utah. But yes, so like in Utah, a church, strangely enough, Utah's definition of a church is pretty loosely defined. It's a religious nonprofit. Yeah, so we don't pay taxes, and if you donate to the church, they are taxed. Your donations are tax deductible. That's right, Trace. So yeah. Yep. I mean, when you think about it, that's what church is. It's a nonprofit, but here's the difference. And there's a reason why people have asked me why does it we don't just call it a nonprofit? Why go specifically after a church? And the answer is that there is a power in our financial and political system. And this is the only time, hopefully, you'll hear me say something exactly, precisely political. But I'm just referring to the policy. I'm not talking about any party or any candidate or any such thing. And I'm not endorsing anything, any movement, political movement. But in terms of policies, there's only one policy that determines whether a church is a church and what makes it different. And that's the tax code. The tax code says basically, if it's a church, just the fact that you give money to it makes it charity, regardless of what you do with it, and that the IRS cannot challenge it unless they have a senior member of the Treasury Department sign off on auditing the church. And then the most that they can do, they can't do anything to the donors. They can't do anything to the members. They can't even do anything to the organization. All they can do is say, this is how much you owe us in taxes because you were actually doing non-church related business here. But as we see, the Mormon church gets away with whatever they want. Frankly, Catholic charities are just as bad. There's all kinds of evil corruption going on in terms of churches out there, but they raise enough money to actually do something. You know, I've said this many times, that if the Mormon church were to turn its $300 billion assets, and I put to them the challenge that they could cure world hunger. They could end world hunger right now, any time. For an organization that claims to follow a man who said, go out and tell the world, you know, and feed people. And, you know, when you've done it unto the least of these, you've done it unto me. They have the power to end world hunger. They just won't. And so it's, you know, they'll tell you they're doing their part, but they're not. They're not doing their part at all. Mega churches are just as bad, Trace. Absolutely. Do we even need to get into what Joel Osteen's church has been caught doing? How they even found that somebody had stashed a bag of checks that people had written into the wall of a bathroom in Joel Osteen's megachurch, which was a football stadium, if I'm not mistaken, or a basketball stadium or something. It's like, this is ridiculous, man. And so I looked at that and I said, why? You know, what would atheists do if we had that kind of fundraising power? I mean, what would we do that was different? You know, if you ask any Christian, they'd say, well, they just have a big orgy and everybody would get laid, which, first of all, good start. It's a good start. But there's only so much money you need to do that. You know, the orgy is like the first $1 million. After that, you got 300 billion more that you could use to end world hunger. You could use to give people an education, give them job training. I mean, Jules, how big of a difference would it make in people's lives? You've worked as an EMT and as a paramedic, right? And you've worked as a nurse.
Yeah.
How big of a difference would it make for a person out there who's working in gig working or, you know, driving Uber or whatever, just to get certified as an EMT, for example?
Oh, in fact, it's, you know, it hardly costs anything. That's the big thing, you know, for them to get certified. It's a semester of school.
Right.
in a community college. So, and then taking a test after that, which is, it's not lots of money, then
Right.
to start from EMT to medic, that is like a year, maybe two, but still people
Right.
can,
And
can do it.
but it can significantly improve a person's earning power, right? So
Yeah.
it's a matter of
Yeah.
getting just getting the resources where people can get the training, get the certification,
Mhm.
and turn their life around. Why can't a church do that? I mean, right now you've got the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here in Utah. They're expanding the BYU campus to have a medical school. God knows what's going to happen when the medical community finds out this is by an organization that thinks the world is less than 6,000 years old, and that the all of humanity came from one person who is a trans woman taken from Adam's rib. But won't acknowledge that she's a trans woman. So, I just think it's
Yeah.
wild. But meanwhile, we could be training people to do cybersecurity. We could be training people to be paralegals, which are in very high demand right now. We could be training people to be behavioral technicians to help people, young people with autism, or even adults with autism. We could be training a workforce of professionals with future-proof careers that as automation starts to take away all of these jobs, we could get to the point where we could have these people working in fields that actually will pay them into the future. Why in the world are we giving money to these universities in these unconscionable amounts, who then turn around and charge so much in tuition that people can't finish their degrees, and then spend the rest of their lives trying to pay off a degree that's not even getting them a job? So that's what I said. I said, look, the Church of Korihor, we have what are called missions of enlightenment. We should invest in it small and grow it as we go, and just start creating job training centers all over this country, and just say, look, we will train you to become an EMT, or to become a behavioral technician, or to become certified in cybersecurity. And instead of pretending to do it, actually do it. And then we just go to the corporations and say, don't you need behavioral techs for your organization? Oh yeah. Don't you need EMTs here at the hospitals? And oh, hell yeah, we do. Don't you need paramedic? Donate to the Church of Korihor's Mission of Reason, and we'll set up a job training center, and we'll employ people to come in and get these job skills. That's the kind of thing that an atheist church would do, in my opinion. And so that's what we're doing. That's Korihor.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing that lacks the most is people. I think, and a lot of it is people don't want to go out and do, certain jobs, and they don't go out and, or try for them. And, an EMT gets paid almost what someone at McDonald's makes, and these people can go and get the job, and, they can find their way back out of what their situation they're in.
But I mean, so I trained to be an EMT in high school, but it was an EMTB. And not a lot of people know these classifications.
Yeah,
right.
Basic.
So
certain states will have an intermediate, and then you have your paramedic.
That's right. And paramedic is really where it jumps over into a new line of earning potential, I think, right? I mean, I don't know if EMTA is how they make. How do they?
It really depends where you're at, because the county I lived in, Florida, the pay was fantastic.
Really?
I'll tell you what.
Even for EMTBs?
Yeah. Even for EMTBs.
Wow.
They were making, I think right now, they'll probably be, making like 50 grand a year to start off with, if they're just out of school.
See? I mean, that's a big jump up from driving Uber, if you ask me. I mean, for most people I know.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I don't want to weigh in on anything political, but let's just say this much, okay? They are moving. There's a certain company that makes self-driving electric vehicles. Won't say what name it is. That may or may not be connected into the incoming presidential administration very intimately. We're not saying who, and I'm not offering an opinion on it. But this company is the only company that's really aggressively pursuing self-driving cars in the country right now. And they basically have an agreement, from what I understand. I may be wrong about this. From what I understand, they have an agreement with Uber that they're going to just basically start replacing all these Uber drivers with self-driving cars. And I'm like, do you have any idea? I mean, is anybody concerned about employment out there? Do you know how many people out there this is the only way they make money anymore in this economy? It's like, what are these people supposed to do? Do you think gods or governments have come up with a plan for what those people are going to do? Their best option is universal basic income at this point. I'm not endorsing anything, but I'm just saying at this point, if they don't come up with new ways for people to earn a living, they're going to have to pay them to breathe, or they're going to have to want them as slaves. They're already talking about corporate cities. Amazon wants to do this. This is not political. This is business related, so I could talk about it. Jeff Bezos is talking basically about taking the centers, Amazon distribution centers, and building housing on them so that people can come and live basically in cities where you live and work. Everything in your life is built around. I'm like, so it's a Foxconn plant. I mean, it's that's a Foxconn plant. That's what they have in China, where they make iPhones, and then the people go up to the roof, at their breaks and choose their existential, solution. It's insane that this is happening, that they're even talking about this in America. So I'm looking at this and going, we need to train people with job skills. Bookkeeping. Do you know how big of an earning potential jump people can get from learning bookkeeping? And it's like a couple hours courses. Just, even just learning QuickBooks will get you, can seriously turn a person's life around. So, I mean, I think it's time for us to have, a whole rethink on what we do as a society when it comes to education.
And I think a lot of time, I'll tell you what, when it came to getting into nursing, it's too much time wasted on all these prerequisites. Because I'm of Mexican descent, so my mom tells me, you go to Mexico, you go to Guadalajara's medical school, jump in there, and they're teaching you medicine. They're not making you go through math classes. They're not making you, go to language classes and all these prerequisites that schools here in the U.S. do, and they'll just teach you what you need to do to be a doctor. And
it'd be one thing if the prerequisites were about bringing up the general level of education, but at some point it's pretty clear that what they're doing is they're trying to fleece you for tuition.
Yes, correct. I mean, when I went to nursing school, my biggest thing was, why am I taking drama classes or art classes? I understand taking anatomy and physiology, but why the other classes, And English, I would understand, because we do have to, we used to chart on paper. Now it's all computerized. But that's about what I have to say. It's just...
As opposed to me, I only wanted to take drama courses in college because I studied film and television production and discovered an acting class, which your acting 101 class, you had to take a theater acting class, which I think many of my fellow filmmakers resented, but I loved it. I fell in love with the theater, but I had to take a science class, which I liked my science class. So that's fortunate. But I mean, what does natural geography have to do with being a good filmmaker? Nothing. It made no sense at all. So, yeah. Oh, I didn't know you're an actor, DJ. That's cool. I graduated. I went to Scottsdale Community College when I was younger, and I studied
I
at the Southwest Music Conservatory.
I have two cousins that are producers.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yes, they went to Cal Arts, located in Valencia, California,
Sure.
and if you've ever watched the movie The Astronaut Farmer with
Oh,
Billy
yeah.
Bob Thornton,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay, the Polish brothers were the producers. Those are my cousins.
Oh, no
One of
kidding.
them, and when you watch the movie, uh, one of my cousins is married to the oldest daughter of the astronaut farmer, and the younger daughter,
Fun.
and then the younger daughter is actually his daughter. So, and then
Interesting.
he played the FBI agent. He
Sort
actually
of a
he
Woody
actually played
Allen.
the FBI agent.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's fun.
yeah,
Are they
yeah. And
atheists?
no, I don't even know. They might be.
They're
I
Catholic.
don't know.
That's
Well, we
cool,
grew up
though.
Catholic, all of us. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'm
went to
imagining.
Catholic school and all that, but then age 24 was when those missionaries found me. And then
Mm,
what's about 4 years ago started my deconstruction, so
mm,
I think
mm.
when we first you interviewed me, like I said, my shelf broke about a year or two ago. But I think what
Mm.
finally demolished it, like something else falling on it, was that new trans policy.
Oh,
So
man, I bet. I bet. I tell
yeah,
you, there's some parallels. I mean, I don't know I'm not going to say I can put myself in your shoes here because I don't know anything about, I really don't understand being a trans person or what it means to transition. I want to, but at the end of the day, that will always be your experience. But it's interesting to
right.
me how many tandem things we have going on, you and I, because I am also Mexican American. I say Latinx. I don't mind people saying Latino, but you just say, call me Latino, you can call me Latinx. But my mother is a maestas. She's a Mexican woman, and her parents grew up Catholic, and and that's a part. I in my since my deconstruction of Mormonism and of God, I have really come around to understanding my roots in Catholicism on my mother's side and understanding both the bad but also the good, that I accept that Catholicism shaped the woman who raised me, and even though she never knew a day as a Catholic, to be blunt with you, I don't think she was even blessed as a Catholic. So because her parents converted when she was just barely born. So that's cool though,
Disha has a
DJ,
very
that
good,
you
yeah, that's a very good statement there because, being a nurse, it's very different than being a doc. And like docs just focus on the issue at hand, but as nurses, we focus on physiological issues. We focus on, the physical person's side, their mental health, but we also focus on their spiritual side. And when we focus on the spiritual side, yeah, you want to find out maybe what faith they belong to. Because if I had a Mormon, I would know, hey, they want a priesthood blessing, in the ER, when I used to work ER. So I would know,
wow.
okay, do I need to call you know, someone in your family so they can come give a priesthood blessing? It's important to know different things. But or if someone was dying, call the Catholic priest to give the last rites.
Right.
But some people are atheists and agnostics, but you can have a spiritual side, I always say. And I'll say this a lot in my videos, is you can have a spiritual side, but you don't have to believe in a deity, an entity, but you can look at the spiritual side of like yoga, Tai Chi, many different things like that. I know Deja, did you say you taught Tai Chi? Or I know she trained in martial arts a lot, and that it requires a very spiritual side to it too, but you don't have to believe in a specific one.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was, I don't know if you love Sam Harris like I do, or if you get into Sam Harris at all, But Sam Harris was the first atheist I knew to really speak bluntly about atheists crave spiritual community and spiritual experience. And when I heard him say that, because I got mad love from it, I love me some Sam Harris like crazy. And I heard him say that. I'm like, did he just say that we want spiritual community like church? This is years ago. I'm like, oh, gross. I'm never going to step foot in a church again the rest of my life. Blah. Mormonism burned me out of it, right? It wasn't until I was a little more grown up and mature that I'm like, well, some of the things that I do crave in my life, I didn't realize that that's what spirituality meant. And it was Rollo May, and not to get too deep into it, but who said that, who turned me on to that. Atheists, we slip into a space where we want for wonder. And I said, well, I don't want for wonder, do I? I want to wonder. Okay, I'm into it. Let's get some wonder, and that's what really turned me on to what I can now call a spiritual journey, and I think we can build a spiritual community for atheists. That's why we started the Church of Korihor.
Look at Drace's comment there. I love it. It says, that's how we should talk around the hyper-religious when we need them. Have you heard about the good news of atheism? Would you like to learn more about the non-existent Lord and Savior?
Okay, so yes, I love that, Jace. I love it. So tell me what you think about this, you guys. So I've been thinking about great ways to promote Korohorism, and here's one. I'm thinking I'm going to have myself a little name tag made up, and I am going to go up to Salt Lake, give somebody a little piece of their medicine, and go door to door knocking on doors as a missionary promoting the good word of Korihor. I want to know who would watch that video, right? I'll just record myself just going door to door and then use it as an opportunity to raise money for
Oh,
I think
we could do it even better. Maybe I should go over to Salt Lake and we do it as a male.
The two of us?
Because you know how they always say your companion, the companions are always
right.
male, 2 males or 2 females.
That's right. That'd be great. I'm Harold Joe, and this is Sister Jules, and we're here to preach to you. Can we come in? Can you imagine those Mormons? I mean, we'll probably have to wear bulletproof vests.
Is Salt Lake open carry? Because
you know it is. You know it is.
Oh, yeah, we are here in Albuquerque. So,
sure.
When you said, you got to be careful, when you go out and hand out blankets, I'm like, oh, I'll be fine.
I love this comment from Deja. That's right. So, here's what's wild about it. If those of you who like reading like 19th century literature as I do, spiritual used to mean something entirely different than how we use it today. Religion really has, the God religions have really hijacked the idea of something that is spiritual. They used to say that spiritual was like horseback riding was a spiritual activity. Thomas Jefferson said that his favorite spiritual activity was to go target shooting on his property with a pistol. It's like, people used to understand spiritual as a connection to your internal light, to your internal to your enjoyment of life. So yeah, I agree. That's what spiritual should be.
Or have you considered giving up your Lord and shaver? Oh, I tell you, I've got great people over here.
Your people are funny, man. We got to get more comedy at Hellfire Agency. We got to get the agency to weigh in with the jokes. They'll all weigh in with dirty jokes because they're my kind of people. I gotta say, I'll say this. I'll ask your audience and mine. I mean, you ever heard a preacher preach the way that I'm preaching? I mean, you gotta admit, this is a whole new kind. And all the
that all the people that I've heard talk in your community, all have been great. Like Beth Magnetic,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
hers
Oh,
was
yeah.
awesome, talking about
Yeah.
money and how it's actually a tangible thing, that we can see it and feel
Right.
it, as
Right.
opposed to what we're usually taught about God.
Right. And guilt about
You
money.
know,
The intangible guilt about, that you go out, they shame you for thinking about money, for talking about money, and then they turn around and say, well, we'll go ahead and take some of that money. It's like
let's take
it's like
10%
how
of that.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's like me, the biggest thing, like I said, whatever comes into me. This is like, since I started my Printify store and I have a Patreon, I said, whatever I make on that is extra. So I'm taking 10. Before I was giving 20% to the Transgender Resource Center here. And I wasn't getting much from my Patreon. So hopefully the Printify store does more, but 20% off the top is going to go to charities. And like I said, 10% is going to go to Transgender Resource Center, and I'll help, the luminary effort with the other 10%. Then 80%
Right.
will be to improve the equipment on the channel.
I love that.
That's big, because this is extra. Once this gets monetized, this will be extra money for me. So
I love that.
that's. Mhm.
I love
So
that. And
that's
look,
why.
here's the wondrous thing to me, Jules, and I'd love your thoughts on this, is that one of the most important things to know about toxic masculinity that I have learned is how men require of women so much of their time. And in your experience as a woman, I'm curious how you feel about this. I feel like a major moral crisis is in this country of the expectation on women, especially as content creators, to give their time and give their time and give their time without being adequately compensated for it in any way. In just another way that women are expected to just give and give and give of their time selflessly without being compensated.
Yeah, I would, I would say so. I mean, the thing is, I think that I get a lot of hate because, most of the people that come on here and start shooting hate messages are saying still the fact that I'm not a woman, and that's not cool, and it's not what they're feeling. But I can have I've got these great moderators here, Drace and Lena. These two are like little snipers coming up with their ghillie suit. Because as soon as someone starts posting hate mail or hate comments in there, they're like, boom, they take them off. But sometimes I'll challenge these people,
Yeah.
especially, and I get religious ones that'll say, oh, why don't you come back to Jesus? And I always, will give them a challenge. I'll tell them, I'm like, well, let's talk about the Council of Nicaea. Let's talk about what books were left out. That's I'm like, this is a myth.
Yeah.
And who did you have the other day that have the myth channel?
Derek.
Derek.
Derek from
his
Myth Vision.
channel,
Yeah.
From Myth Vision. His channel is just the first half hour I watched in one video said so much about how there's 300 prophecies that are going to come true in the Old Testament, but they happen to come true in the New Testament, and how he can prove that is just kind of like almost looking at. I was arguing with someone and I said, let's look at Star Wars. I'm like, Star Wars, like you said it does show the myth of Darth Vader coming back to being a good person. And then you go back and look at the prequels when they created them, but then it shows it's kind of like reversing, putting out the New Testament first, but then putting out the Old.
Right. Yeah, who could have possibly foreseen that Anakin would come back around? Well, the story of Darth Vader was written first, and then they came out and made Anakin. That's basically how the Old and New Testaments were made. Basically the same thing. Yeah,
Correct.
I agree. I agree. Only the
Yeah,
difference
that
is
was
that
one of
George Lucas doesn't pretend it's not myth. And you know, George Lucas was the first one that turned me on to that myth. You can appreciate myth knowing it's a myth. In fact, in history,
right.
we have every reason to believe that the people back then did the same thing. That maybe there were people who didn't think Zeus was real, thought that Zeus was a myth, and that wasn't a bad thing. That was what it was about. That's what it was for. In fact, I think many people
That
do that today.
I challenge someone with that. I'm like, you know, they come in and they start, oh, we got to turn back to God and Jesus. I'm like, you know, Jesus was a man that you, in your beliefs, that said, you know, was come to earth, was born of immaculate conception. I'm like, well, let's look at Perseus. I'm like, he was Zeus's son. I'm
Right.
like, obviously, a woman here on earth had him, and he had these
Yeah.
many trials. I'm like, they correspond.
Right.
They're all, no, no,
The
no, no,
hurt
no,
and the
it
hatred.
doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, they're all,
It's that's ridiculous. I used to tell people all the time before I just decided to stop caring, that you've heard of a guy named Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he was in seminary wrote a paper. You can find it online. It's super interesting, where he basically talks about how the story of Jesus. And this was a man who was a reverend. This man was a Christian minister, and he wrote this paper in seminary, got I think got a good grade on it, about how the tradition of Jesus came from the dying and rising God myths of the Mediterranean from the first 3 centuries, and it was a very good. I thought it was a pretty good, quick encapsulation of what he learned about that. This is a man who was ordained as a Christian minister, talked about God all the time. You know, you can believe that the mythology is a myth and still enjoy the fruits of spiritual community and even guide people in spiritual community. It's totally plausible.
right, right. And you know, that's what I always, you know, when people, you start telling them that, they're like, no. And I've even had people eventually like leave the stream, or others that'll just keep saying, oh no, that's not true, you need to come back. I'm like, well, give me your rationale, show me. I
That's right.
always give them the Noah's Ark thing. I'm like, how we found pieces of the Ark. I'm like, do you know how big that boat would have to be? Bigger than most of these aircraft carriers, bigger than the Titanic. I'm like, you bring me a piece of wood from it? Maybe. I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe. I'm like, but you can't. And they always say,
Yeah.
oh, well, they found where it looks like where the resting place of it was. I'm like,
Oh
but
gosh.
they're, I'm like, I've looked it up. I'm like, that's where they think it was,
Yeah.
but they haven't proved it.
Mount Ararat, that's been so disproven again and again and again. And then they found this rock formation near to Mount Ararat, and that's the real ark. And then they went and they did they did the research there, and it's like, no, that's a natural rock formation. It's very common in the area. And it's like, it just keeps getting debunked and debunked and debunked. It's so funny.
Yeah, I'll go check out the mountains here in New Mexico. Go look at the petroglyphs that are there. I believe in what they draw, because
Yeah.
if you look at a lot of what they draw, it looks like, seriously, it looks like extraterrestrial beings, you know? So
There is actually some theories in that may be pretty
yeah,
sound, actually. Yeah. No,
yeah.
I
And
hear. And at the end of the day, we don't know. And for somebody to say, no, that can't possibly be what it is, I think that's just as close-minded as the people who say, no, I know that's definitely what it is. Everybody should be intellectually honest enough to say, I think this is true. I think it's interesting. And I want to know if I am wrong. That's like me and my Jesus mythicism crap.
here, Lena has a pretty good comment. She says, that's exactly what I ended up doing, seeing all the similar stories from different religions and myths all around the world and history. I love that.
Yeah.
You know,
Same. Same. Yo, you'd love
this
Myth's vision. Lena, you'd like Jules was talking about. Great channel. Yeah, where he goes over
Yeah.
that. But I'll tell you where I seen Jules that you pulled out the myth and started hitch slapping some religious people. I was on the first time I was on one of your lives just watching. You pulled out
Hmm.
Lilith on some Bible thumper. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, this woman's talking Lilith to a Bible person. It's like, that's not true. That's not real. That's not real. It's like, it's as real as anything in Genesis, guy. Lilith
Yeah.
Lilith is probably the best story from the story of Adam and Eve, frankly. And it's a travesty that she was pulled out of that story, frankly. So
Exactly. And that's why I said, the Council of Nicaea, they didn't put certain books in there. And Lilith, the Book of Lilith. And then they start denying it all. Others will say it's part of Jewish,
Right.
teachings. Which,
Right. It was
if you want to look at,
it's like, which of
yeah,
these
go ahead.
teachings isn't Jewish teachings? It's like, I mean that, but they did. That was one of the ways that they decided that certain scriptures couldn't be added. It was because they were too Jewish. And anti-Semitism is right at the heart of how the whole story of Christianity really came to be, frankly.
Lena, once again, I tell you, she's fantastic on stuff like this. She's like, Lilith was one of the first things that ever stuck out to me. Older folks in my church tried to tell me, family never to let me hear of it.
Yeah. Which is wild, because here's the funny thing. The story of Adam and Eve and Lilith, for me, is about consent. And while you got these people who love to rant on and on and on about how people who are not Christian have no morals, particularly no sexual morals, as I look at it, I say, and yet every trans person I know, every gay person I know, every polyamorous person I know is a crusader for consent. And yet no Christians I know really are out there fighting the good fight of saying, look, that we need to have enthusiastic consent. There needs to be an appreciation for that. If there is a power dynamic where a person can get another person fired, where a person can cost another person their housing, where a person can cost another person their income, that person can't possibly consent to sex with that other person. That's not,
Right.
There has to be a whole different layer of consent. And I'm like, if consent isn't at the heart of conversations about sexual morality, then I don't want to know what that person's idea about sexual morality is. It shocks me to think about how we have such different values, but we have different values from those God churches. Okay, Deja just called it out. I know I just finished on a rant, but Deja just said it right there. So I had Jacob Hansen on my channel. Jacob Hansen is a Mormon apologist who runs a Thoughtful Faith, a channel called Thoughtful Faith. I've been trying to goad him into a debate with me for like over a year now. And finally, I might actually be able to get one. We'll have to see. I'm getting a call from my wife, so I might have to take it here. But he said to me, I was watching one of his videos, and he was telling this woman who was I think a sex therapist or at least is a sex counselor. She teaches people about reproduction and about anyways. So, and she had mentioned to him, he's like, well, think about, for example, prostitution. And she's like, okay, what about it? He's like, you wouldn't want somebody you love to fall into that lifestyle, right? And she's like, I would want them to be safe. And he's like, okay, wait a minute. And he's like, but you would feel like that was a bad choice that they had gone into in life. And she said to him, what do you think about the trad wife trend? What about trad wives? And he's like, Well, yeah, so that's an example of something you would rather that your daughter, for example, got into a lifestyle where she didn't have to work, she could just raise children. And she's like, no. And I'm like, no, that went right over his head, right over his head. Where she said, she was
Yeah.
basically making the case that what's the difference when somebody stays with a person, stays married, when a woman has to stay with a man because she would go hungry and unhoused if she didn't, because he snatched her up, married her before she had an education, before she had a career, before she could provide for herself. And so now every encounter that she has, in effect, is another kind of non-consensual work, right? And
Right.
so, and just they can't calculate consent. I might have to take a quick call, Jules. Hold on real quickly for me, if you would.
Okay.
I just have to make sure it's not an emergency.
Hey, everybody. I hope you've liked the stream so far. I know this has been a little different than our usual. Like I said in the past, I did one with Joe on his channel. So this time we tried to reverse it. I'm doing fantastic, Lena. I think this is the second time I speak with Joe online. I think his ideas are great. They're real good. How it's mainly about helping people that need, to be a lot having to do with starting these warming centers and handing out blankets. So I've really told him that I will focus a lot on hanging out blankets. I did tell him that, of course, I will give part of, because like I said, any here's Joe, he's back.
Hi.
Uh,
Sorry.
my
Wife
friend,
telling me that she
my
had something in the oven. Just want to make sure it didn't burn.
so my subs are really liking the conversation.
Good. Good.
I was getting a lot of positive feedback from my subs here.
I appreciate that. And I love that you, I'm looking at your comments now, you guys. Look, I could have, it's surprising to me how many ex-Mormons I talk to now who are like, oh, so you started a church. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, did you get nonprofit status? I'm like, yeah, of course. I mean, what the heck do you think I'm doing here? I'm doing the real thing. Church of Korhor is a real church. And they're like, so you're going to get rich. And I'm like, from church work? And they're like, yeah. I mean, isn't that why everybody starts churches? I said, maybe that's why God believers start churches. But like the Missions of Reason, I've committed to this. We'll see how long I can keep up with it. But my commitment was, look, the Missions of Reason, like Rapture 2025, which is our effort to put blankets on people who are out in the cold, and then with the residue of the money left over after that, we're going to try to buy some church houses, particularly Mormon church houses, at least one here in Salt Lake, so that we can turn it into a 24-hour library. And these missions, every penny that goes into them goes to the work. None of it goes to the church, which means that none of it gets turned around to pay me. All of the effort, all of the pay, because we do believe in compensating our clergy, unlike the Mormons. That once again, if you're, especially when it comes to women, because right now, as of once I ordained Jules to be a luminary, there will be a total of 3 clergy in this church, of which I am the only male. And you just really think about that, how different that is from most Christian churches out there. Okay, I will be the only man ordained in this church for a while, probably, at the rate we're going now. But the heralds get compensated out of church activities like the sales of books or the sales of materials and things like that, to the larger, not just to members of the church, but to the larger, to the community at large. Like, for example, I talked about my book coming out later this month is called All My Prophets Paint. I plan to release that to the world and let people all over the world enjoy that. And that's how we're going to compensate the heralds, not out of the donations that are given to put blankets on people. It's like, But you think about you consider the difference between that and the Mormon Church alone. I mean, they got
Hi, Jen.
hey Jen. Yeah, so that's why I think that this is a whole different kind of movement. I am going to quickly just bail out. I know I just did this a minute ago, but the wife did tell me to go pull something out of the oven, and I can't sleep on the couch
Okay.
again tonight. So hold on, I'll be right back. Okay.
Okay, sounds cool. Yeah, it's been fun. Deja, like I was saying before, I think the ideas of helping people with, pretty much just blanketing and all that, and as it slowly grows, I think it's a good idea. Um, I don't know if you ever talked to him, but in the past, I did mention your artwork to him. So, if he wants to, he'll definitely, we'll talk to you about that. Also, but I think he's just got fantastic ideas, and I, if he could do it here in Albuquerque, I think a warming center here would be great. It's just kind of the thing here. It would need security, I think. There's a lot of people that, there is a lot of drug use around here, so I think it would need some security. There are independent security companies here. That's one thing I would look at. But they're called International Protective Services, and they're like at every Walmart outside, sitting with patrol cars and armed. So yeah, and that's his big thing is like there's real like here, like he said, this is not believing in anything. This is not, you can, he's all basically if, I became one, he's all you can walk away at any time. Like the luminary thing is, you don't even have to be a member, but, and there's no basic scripture to it. And there's just the thoughts of the members. I've watched a couple of the Godless sermons. In fact, he wants me to give one this week, and I'm going to do something about. I'm going to focus it on arrows. So Sunday in the morning, I will be around. I think he starts at 11 a.m. my time. I'll be giving a talk on his channel to everyone. So I think. And there's a lot, in fact, a lot of the people he talks with do have major YouTube channels. He's going to try to get me on a large platform. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Deja. Yeah, I got tired of it too, because yeah, and that's a really good idea, and that's why I always push that with a lot of people. It's spirituality is not about religion. You could be spiritual, yeah, and be religious, but they're two separate things. You can do yoga and be spiritual. You can do Tai Chi, and there's spiritualistic in that. Yes, yes. And that's what the biggest mission is going to be here is to, help millions. That because, like he says, we can go out and help everyone. What are the requirements to join? All you have to do is um, there's two things that you can do. One, Jen, there's you can be what's a luminary and just get ordained, and a luminary is like someone that'll go out and hand out blankets. Well, and you don't have to be a member, but if you want to be a member, you just have to take an oath. Calls it the oath of reason. In fact, I'll link his website here. And I took it because, and it's pretty cool because it basically, he'll send, if you have ever belonged to any churches in the past, he will help you by sending letters to all those organizations. Like me, I still had to do my resignation letter from the Mormon church, and they and he will send out letters. If you're like me, he's sending one to Salt Lake City to make sure I'm out of their records. So this is the website for his organization, the Church Corps, and it explains everything there. It also talks about rituals that he wants to do. Like they're like, I know I helped him figure out a ritual for people that are trans. And we've really, I guess he's gotten good feedback from what I told him originally. Like he wanted to do a coming out ritual, but from what he got from gay people was that they didn't really need something like that. Maybe a different type of really private celebration. He's going to do a divorce ritual. Why look at divorce as a negative thing, as opposed to why not look at it as a new reboot, a new start? So he's gotten ideas on that. Not just celebrate marriage, but celebrate divorce. So he's, the thing is that I like that he does is he finds people of each community, like he found me just by going by and watching, found me in one of my streams. He became a sub. Then he interviewed me on his channel. And here we are at this point, and it's been the only reason I like it, because it's not a religion, but it's something to help people move forward and help them, get out of the cold. I think that's the biggest thing, and it's one of the biggest things I see here in Albuquerque. I drive down a street, it's called Zuni, Zuni, and there are so many homeless people out in tents that I would give each and every one of them a blanket. So I think it's a fantastic to go out and, on that mission and just hand out blankets. I think it will be easy. One thing he's going to do is send out, like, you can just get a few blankets. Like you said, he'll give challenge points to each person that does it. So you buy the challenge points, it sends you a couple of blankets, and you can go and give them out. I think that yeah. And that's one of the biggest things. He's and that's the thing, is really to help people deprogram, because especially, and this is the cool thing that we have here, that we have two different people that have both left the same church. Me, I resigned or just stopped going. He got excommunicated. So you got two different ways of, two different experiences. And I thought it was, we have two different ways of looking at things, and we have different experiences in our life. So that's what I found interesting about what he was doing. I liked the fact that he invited me to interview and, kind of, go over what he thought the trans community would want to recognize them, or us, I should say. Uh, and I gave him the idea of how many trans people do have butterfly tattoos because it is a transition from the caterpillar to the butterfly. And so he came up, he had, like he said, he was going to call it the Aurora um, ceremony. Now he's calling it the chrysalis. They're kind of trying to we're trying to come up with the best way to do it. Actually, and then someone mentioned something about the cosmos. I think it was you, Deja. His logo has to do a lot with the Apollo 13 mission, and how things went wrong and how they navigated back, watching the moon. And that's the moon that they were watching there. That's what it has to do about. So that's why that comment caught my attention, because, yeah, he focuses a lot on that moon. And another thing, it's like, for example, like I said, both those being Mormons, they would have us require us to pay 10% tithing off our gross pay, and here he just says, oh, give me $25 for the year so we can cover certain things, like I think probably some costs on maybe making your paperwork to resign from others, but it's like $2 a month if you can afford it, he says. That's about it. It's not like having to give 10% of what you own, but and it's not leading you down a path that is saying, oh no, you have to believe in this and this and this and this. And it's one of those things. He also says you can join now. If you do join now, it's all tomorrow. You can walk away, and I'm not gonna come follow you. And like the Mormons will do that. You move to a new city, I think they have computers at the post office, and they'll be knocking at your door within a month. They did it here to me. They showed up. I remember I actually had COVID when they came. So I said, oh, not right now, elders. I'm sick. And right away, they wanted to come in and give me a blessing. No, I was like, so yeah, I think there's good to this. It's mainly about service to people that are in need. Um, I wonder if he's gonna come. Yeah, Scientologists do follow people. Um, it is, the Mormons, they will follow you to like every place you move. So like if you move somewhere and next thing you know, you'll be there for a few months. Next thing you know, they'll be knocking at your door, and they'll know you by name um and everything. Thank you, Lena. You did, as always, you do fantastic. Have a good night. So let's see, tomorrow's what? Friday? Oh, wait, no, tomorrow's Thursday. I do work tomorrow, but I will do a live stream tomorrow night. Uh, yeah, it is getting late, and I have to work in the morning. I'm gonna see if Joe comes back soon. If not, I will probably be. But yes, good night, Lena. No problem,
Whatever.
Deja. Oh, hey, Joe. I, how's it going? You got everything out of the oven there?
I did. Are we still live? Cool.
Yeah, we're still live. I was like, uh, Lena did leave. It was, I think she had to go get some rest, or she,
Oh yeah.
so yeah, but no, but this has been fun. Everybody's giving it good. I did post the website to corehor.org. Someone
Great.
said, Jen did ask me.
Mhm.
She said, "What are the requirements to join?"
That's a great
I'm
question.
like, yeah,
I'm glad somebody's
I
asking
told,
that question. That's really exciting. So, in order to join the Church of Korihor, currently you have to be a U.S. person. We don't currently exist in other countries, and you have to be at least 18 years of age, and you have to fill out the application to take the oath of reason. And the oath of reason is kind of like our version of a baptism. Jules took the oath of reason just this last Sunday. How was that experience for you, Jules?
it was cool because I think one of the biggest things is how it helps you do away with whatever other faiths or religions that and then basically you're joining a transformation to the godless community, really. It's that
Yeah.
final thing.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was great. I personally have taken the oath of reason, and I felt the same way. It's like I've been an atheist for 23 years. This is the first time that I performed a ritual where I declared to everybody, "Look, I quit on gods. I quit on it." Even the closest thing to a ritual like that for me was my court of love, where I was kicked out of the Mormon Church, but that wasn't nearly sufficient. But
And
yeah,
and basically, when you join the Mormon Church and you're a member of another church, when you get baptized, it's supposed to be washing away everything from the other religion.
sure.
You know?
I mean, we're not doing anything that they're not doing, right? But the most
Mm-hmm.
important thing for me, like whether it's about the Mormons or the Jehovah's Witnesses, Scientologists are like this, Seventh-day Adventists, is that in most of these religions, including Mormonism, they are making it very difficult right now to leave their religions behind because they're losing people so fast. And so what they
Right.
have done is they have started to close all the gaps, all the loopholes that people take advantage of to be able to resign from these churches. And so, but in each case of those religions, those churches have policies that say, however, if you join another church, we will excommunicate you because that's betrayal of our church, right? That's apostasy. And so I,
Mm-hmm.
I say, look, I've got here, let me pull it. Where do I have it? Okay, yeah, here it is. Okay, this right here is my letter of excommunication from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I have it framed. I hang it on the wall when I can. I leave it on the floor now because I pull it out for so many videos now. I love this
Look at
letter.
the last look at the last two comments on my stream over here. One's from Jen, one's from Deja. I love Deja's, but
Try to get on a Planet Fitness contract. Yeah, it's like that. Actually, it is a lot like that.
now Jen. So Jen's asking. So what if you have sacraments like baptism, confirmation, communion, my sweet or her quinceañera in the Catholic Church will will be welcomed? And I'm
If
like,
you've had, if you will you be welcomed in our
yeah,
church? Yeah, yeah. You throw that away. Just kidding. I mean, look, the value of rituals you take away from are internally with you. Our ritual, is a ritual, just another rite of passage like any other, in my opinion. And so, yeah, I mean, are you kidding me? We're primarily looking for people who have been confirmed and baptized in other churches and want to let go of a commitment to God's. Now, here's the deal, though, okay? In Christianity, you have what's called the Great Commission, right? Jesus told his apostles, "Go ye into all the world, preaching unto all nations, kindreds, tongues, and people." There's no equivalent of that in Korohorism. We are not out to convert the world. We're not even out to convert all the atheists and agnostics. Everyone is welcome in our community to come and listen to sermons, to come and participate in our missions of reason, even to be ordained, to ask to be ordained. I've got one woman who's going to be ordained probably in the next 2 weeks, who is a Christian, an active believing Christian. And she'll be ordained as a luminary in the Church of Korihor. I don't care. I said, as long as you don't preach gods while you're wearing the stole of the Church of Korihor, and you abide by our values. She's very LGBTQIA plus inclusive. She's an ex-Mormon like us. And she said, absolutely, I understand entirely. And I said, if you abide by the principles of Korohorism while you're working with us, we need all the help we can get, because he who is not one of the few wise sayings by Jesus. And I'm not a fan of Jesus, but I do once in a while he could impress me. And one of the few things he said that really impressed me was, he who is not against us is on our part. And that's our position on that. So we're not out to convert the whole world. We're out to get a handful of agnostics and atheists, apatheists, godless people who are passionate about Korohorism. If that's not you, that doesn't mean you're not welcome in our community. That doesn't mean you can't donate to the church. Donate generously, please. But don't feel pressured to join. Join if it's in your heart to say, I want to take the oath of reason, and I want to participate in these other sacraments. And we're going to have more and more of these sacraments. Oh, by the way, and I don't know if you know about this, Jules, how much you know about this. I think we've talked about it. I'm not sure. Our sacraments are not just for members of the church. So when we do, for example, the chrysalis, the transition sacrament, anyone in the community can ask to have us perform that. If you are not a member of our church and you want to be married by an officiant, by a luminary like Jules will be, or if you want to be married by somebody like me acting as an officiant, we will gladly do that for you. And we will gladly accept the donations.
Which, Joe, I've technically been ordained as a minister, online.
Yeah. Perfect.
I actually did that. I did that once because
you wanted to act as an officiant.
Actually, it was funny because a friend asked me if I could marry her, or someone knew someone that was a minister that could marry someone. And I'm like, I had looked at the marriage license I had in Florida with my ex-wife. I'm like, I said, actually, my friend's name was B. And I'm like, B, let me look some things up. And someone looked at me and it was all, oh, Jules, it figured you'd probably be the one that could do it. And, because I was still practicing Mormon then. And so, and I went and looked up who could officiate a wedding in Florida. And it said an elder in baptism. So I'm like, well, I am an elder according to my Melchizedek priesthood certificate. And I said, and I can baptize people. Guess what, B? I can do it for you.
Yeah.
So let's see. I think Jen's question is, I think she's a little confused because, she was a member of the Catholic Church and wondering if she would lose those sacraments if she joined, or I think it could be, something where I think she holds those closely. So,
so here's,
I think her.
I think I'm picking up what you're putting down there. So here's the blunt answer to your question, and I can't speak for the Catholic Church, but from what I understand, the Catholic Church does not have an apostasy rule when it comes to joining other churches. Strangely enough, I only know this because I spent 2 years as a Mormon missionary in Peru. I converted many a Catholic to Mormonism. and they all went back to practicing Catholicism. And when they went back, all the ones I know of went back to church and went to the cura, went to the priest, and said, I did join the Mormon Church. I'm sorry, and I repent. And the priest would always say, "Oh, who hasn't joined them once in a while? They'll take anybody." And then they're like, well, what do I have to do to be like rebaptized, reconfirmed, or anything? They'd say, nothing. You were baptized. That lasts your whole life. You are a Catholic for life. So I can't speak for the Catholic Church, but from what I understand, in their eyes, if you have ever been made Catholic, you are a Catholic forever, and all of your sacraments are valid for the rest of your life until you are anathematized by the Pope. But I don't think that's going to happen to you. But I can't speak for the Catholic Church. In our eyes, the value you get from the spiritual journey that you are on is valid as long as it is valid within you. We believe in the light of reason, which means that inside of you, the value you got from that ritual stays without any validation from anything outside of you. So I don't, there's nothing about taking the oath of reason that should invalidate sacraments you have with other churches other than membership in a church. And that's only in the case of churches that actually practice this apostasy rule. So I hope that answers your question.
I think it does. I just, to me, it was cool with, being able to say, because I'm following the light of reason and yet denouncing my membership from the Mormon Church, because definitely a cult. I'll be straightforward with that.
Control group, for sure. And Catholicism can be like that, but not so much because of the Roman Catholic Church, at least not in America, so much as these little subgroups of Catholics.
Yeah.
Some of them can be extremely high control groups. But,
but I remember, get this, Joe, and this is something that would probably scare most people. I was being taught the missionary discussions. What do you think my first sacrament meeting was? It was a fasting. The first time I go to sacrament meeting was testimony meeting. Do you know how scary that is to someone that has not gone through one?
Yeah, people don't know. I've said this. I'll tell you, you piss off a Mormon you say this, but really, fast and testimony meeting is a revival, and they'll never say it that way, but that's what it is. Mormon revivals are called fast and testimony meeting. People get hungry for 2 meals, and then when they're hypoglycemic, they get up in front of each other and tell each other what miracles they witnessed in the name of the church, and it is wild. It can get really heated.
It's programming. It is programming because you watch. If you ever do it, when you go for the first time and it's your first session you go to in church, and you watch multiple people get up and basically say the same words with different, the same words, but with different contexts within each person. Oh boy, it's scary. It's like these people are coming up and that really looks cultish. But I managed to stay around and ended up in the more culty ceremony called the temple endowment.
Gosh. Oh my gosh. Talk about triggering, right? Oh my God. We did some culty things when we were Mormons, man. And the weird part is when your parents were part of it and your parents are there and you get to turn and look at them and go, you did this?
I was the only convert in my family.
Yeah. So I can't imagine that. I mean, I remember looking at my dad in the funny hat and looking at my mom in the veil and thinking, oh my gosh, this is what the temple is. I did not expect it to be like that at all. As ex-Mormons, we call the endowment ceremony the funny hat parade. It is like the weirdest thing.
Oh, okay. Jen's really inquiring because her brother or now sister is trans. Um, and agnostic.
Oh yeah.
And maybe he would, maybe he would be able, she might point him this direction.
Yeah. I mean, if
You know?
you're suggesting that your sister would be interested in being a luminary, we'd be interested in talking to them. But if they're interested in having one of the sacraments performed, you don't have to be godless to have one of our sacraments performed. So that's fine because you don't have to join the church. So that's fine. We'd be happy to help. I mean, we're here to serve. Well, Jules, we've been going for 3 hours now. Can you believe that?
Oh, surprised we're not going for 4, because if having Jen in here, we could probably end up here for 5.
Unfortunately, I do have to go because the wife is going to be after me to come up for dinner. But hey, listen, I have enjoyed this immensely.
Yes, this is always a good thing to do. We have fun in here.
Yeah, that's right.
And I tell you, I have great subs. I have like a core group, and most of them were in here today. And especially my moderators. These are my 3 main moderators that have been here tonight. Trace, Lena, and Jen. Lena's probably been one of my earliest subscribers. Probably since in this year last year, I started at 12 subscribers. Now I'm at 575 or 574. And Lena was probably the earliest.
Wow. I got to tell you, Jules, you got a great community going here. I'm glad that you have community. I mean, this is part of your spiritual journey, and I got to tell you, I'm super proud of you and where you are right now. You. And I think you're going to be a big part of other people's journey too. Thank you.
I had a great time in here, and I think they enjoyed it also. From all the, I see a lot of hearts trickling out here. And even when you had to go off and come back on, they all had good feedback. So,
okay.
Maybe we can do this again sometime. Also, Sunday, I am going to be sermonizing in the Church of Korahor.
That's right. So everybody come on over, give us a subscribe on YouTube or on Sunday at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Go ahead and tune in to korahor.org, and we stream live there as well. So I personally cannot wait to hear the sermon. Every person so far in the 4 sermons we have had, I have delivered 2. And this will be our 5th one. I'll officially, once again, be in the minority of people who give sermons at the Church of Korahor, and I love it. And all the other people who give sermons so far have been women. I can't get men to agree to it, but the women are so generous, and I hate to ask them to do things uncompensated, but like I said, we are a poor church at this point. In the future, I hope to make that different. But I really thank you for having me. I want to thank you, Jules, for having me. It's very generous.
No
and I really do hope people will join us on Sunday, because I think your godless sermon is going to be one for the books.
I might ad-lib a lot of it, but it's going to work. Trust me.
Hey, that's when it's best. My best part's mine. Well, we're going to go ahead and end the stream here, folks. But I want to thank you all for being here, and I want to thank all of Jules Treasure's, followers here. Please, everybody, go check out Jules' channel. Go ahead, Jules.
The treasures are my followers. That's what they go by.
And I'm one of them. I'm happy to be a Jules Treasure. All righty, folks.
Awesome.
Have a great evening.
You too, everyone. Thank you for being here. and watching us here on Jules Treasures and on Hellfire Agency or corehorror.org.
Yeah,
Right? Church of
whatever.
Core
Yeah,
Horror.
right.
Mhm.
That's right. You guys have a great
Okay,
night.
everyone, have a great night. Time to get ready for work.